Right, so in at number 10 we have the Crystal Wyvern, but why exactly did I put this thing on the list? And the main reason for it is simply because with this and the normal Wyvern as well, you can include the normal Wyvern, they are considerably fast flyers, and actually one of the fastest if you don't count all of the gliding abilities which flyers may have, and you know, just the general all of the above. And you know, they're really great at picking up creatures as well, which definitely does come into part for a good travelling mount, as especially on ASA at the moment, cryopods are non-existent, so your only way of travelling Rexes around at the moment on ASA is really with a Rganassa. Obviously, not going to be picking up Rexes with this thing, but it can still pick up a wide range of creatures. And obviously, I think it can pick up a lot more creatures than the RG actually, or it may be the same either way. It can still pick up a lot of creatures, not quite as much as the Quetzal, but still a very decent amount, and its speed, again, very good, weight is good, and its damage is quite good as well, which is somewhat important for a travelling mount if you're going to encounter any enemies along the way. If you're taking a particularly dangerous route, then it may be a little bit of an issue, because, you know, you want to keep up a fight where this thing can, but some other creatures on this list definitely won't be able to rack up a fight. Next up, we have got the Quetzal, and this is an absolute beast of flying. This thing can travel over very, very long distances, and with its platform saddle as well, it essentially has a portable mobile base on its back, which is a nice thing, and I'll show you the platform saddle in a second. But they're also really great for metal gathering, not obviously because they can gather that metal, but because they're really good at transporting it across the place and traveling around. Their weight is pretty much, especially on the island, uncompetable, unless obviously you go into things like the Rganassa, but that is a much higher tier creature than the Quetzal, albeit their saddles are unlocked around similar levels, especially to do with the platform saddle, but the tame methods are vastly different, the Rganassa being significantly more resource heavy and complicated than the Quetzal. So I would say you can get the Quetzal easily early before the Rganassa, and it can pick up a wealth of creatures up to the Mammoth. But even with something like a Rex, it can always just store it on its back on that platform saddle. If you build yourself a little cage base, it can be quite a nice setup. Next up, we've got the Manag, and I'm also going to put the Rock Drake in here as well, as I think they're similar creatures on par with each other. So, you know, Rock Drake, Manag, that is what is in at the number 8 spot, I think this one is. Either way, they are both really fast creatures, the Manag being the faster of the two, but also the harder to control one, and packing slightly less damage than the Rock Drake, although the Manag does have that freezing ability, which is an absolutely insane one to yield. Like, it's so OP. Even though it has been nerfed, it is still very OP, and on Extinction, the Manag is pretty much the best travelling mounts. There's one exception, but that creature is much, much later on in the list. And I really think the Manag is a great travel mount. Again, you can just see the speed in this thing, and its stamina drain is pretty minimal too. Again, goes with the Rock Drake as well, so again, pretty on par with each other. Also, to do with them being a flyer as well, you might say they don't really count like the Rock Drake, but I'm going to say they do. They're airborne, they are in the air mainly, so yeah, they count. Either way, you also want to be careful of getting stuck into things, as you can very easily get stuck into walls with these things, and that isn't particularly fun. But here you can see that freezing ability in action, which is actually quite a nice one, and still very OP, even after Wildcard nerfed it, which seems actually insane that it used to be even more OP than it is today. In at number 7, we have the Desmodus, and this creature is an absolute speed beast with that gliding ability, and the first one on the list, unless you obviously count the Rock Drake with the Manag, which I did there, so second on the list. I don't know why sometimes I like to cram creatures together, but you know, sometimes 10 just isn't enough. Either way, these creatures can travel with insane speeds, and with their Sanguine Elixir, I know it's not travel related, it's an absolute taming cheat. A third of that tame done just with a simple click of a button. It is that simple. They're also great farming creatures as well for getting blood bags and all of that. But we're not talking about farming, we're talking about raw travelling speed. Their weight's good, their stamina drain is pretty minimal, and their speed is really nice too. And you know, if there's no convenient places to break, you can always break on a wall or a ceiling, wherever you may find those. So, you know, on the edge of a cliff, well, off the edge of the cliff actually, on the wall, if there's just absolute wrecks everywhere and you need somewhere to land because your stamina's low. And trust me, it sounds a little bit stupid, but it is extremely useful for those times when you need to regen that stamina. If you can actually regen your stamina there. I didn't think that through. I think you can though, if I remember correctly. Next up, we have the Aster Delphus, and this creature is definitely one with insane speed. And I'm going to bundle two creatures again together here. The Aster Delphus and the Rganassa. They're going together here, like the Mana and the Rock Drake. These creatures go hand in hand as well. They're pretty similar and very interchangeable. I know Manag and Rock Drake are a little bit different, but you know, these things are even more similar than the Managama in the Rock Drake, is what I should say, as they pretty much do the same thing, but the Aster Delphus does it with tech, and the Rganassa doesn't do it with tech. It just does it with, like, you can't really say primitive, industrial stuff, like gasoline and all of that. It runs on that, and then it shoots grenades instead of tech lasers. But the Aster Delphus is, in my opinion, arguably just a little bit more OP, and it can be used a lot more, and you know, you've got the benefit of flips and tricks and all of that. But they pretty much are reskins of each other when you really think about it. You know, I guess the Aster Delphus is a bit bigger and arguably a lot more expensive because of the element, and the shadow as well. Either way, I think that the Aster Delphus just has the slight edge over the Rganassa. I don't know what it is. It just seems a lot more maneuverable than the Rganassa, and I don't really like grenades that much in Ark. I don't know what it is. I'm more of a fan of the tech lasers. Although, you know, if this thing had grenades on it, maybe I would like it. Who knows? Either way, Aster Delphus over Rganassa, mainly because the tame method's also a lot more simple as well, and I think maybe they could be a little bit faster. Right, dead in the middle, number 5, Rganassa. I've talked about it a lot in this video, so I'm going to talk about it even more right here. And what is the Rganassa? Well, it's a kind of bug-like creature that spawns on the island and the Lost Island. No other maps, but you can see the spawn locations. They are here on screen right now, if you're wondering. Just any swamp biome if you want to be less specific, but they're the whole things. In original Ark, they're really rare. In ASA, they are absolutely everywhere, and now I despise the swamp biome even more than I ever had before. But why are these things actually good travelling mounts? Well, it's mainly because they can pick up Rexes. That's kind of insane. That's an insane thing to have, okay? A Rex is such a big boss creature. If you have friends, which, you know, it's hard to come by these days, and you had loads of them, like you had like 10, which is the maximum you can get into a boss fight, you can carry 10 Rexes with you. 10 Rexes on 10, oh my god. That could be insane. Imagine if you could pick up Gigas with this thing. That would be they'd be a little bit too OP. Obviously, cries exist. Not in ASA at the moment, though. But luckily, the same method is quite long and resource intensive, I can say. Like, you probably want a whole Bronto to tame one, so... And you can have those resources if you want 100% effectiveness. Not really necessary, though, because it's not a boss creature or anything like that, so... I don't really see the point in getting 100% effectiveness. Doesn't seem worth it to me. Does it seem worth it to you, actually, for Rganassa? 100% effectiveness? Yes or no? Either way, yes, very... fast creature, I should mention as well. A lot of stamina, barely any stamina drain, a lot of weight, and it can pick up Rexes. You really can't go wrong with this thing, unless it kills you during the tame method. That's not particularly great at all. Next up, we have got the Snowowl, the other extinction creature, which was left out of the equation, and it's just... man, this is a great travelling mount. With that gliding ability, again, being shared with the Desmodus and things like the Griffin. And I know I didn't put the Griffin on this list, and actually I don't really like its gliding ability. If you like the Griffin, pretend I wasn't talking about the Desmodus and chuck the Griffin there, I guess. Either way, Griffin not on this list. And Snowowl is an absolutely insane travelling mount. Like, its speed during that glide ability and smoothness, which the Griffin doesn't have. I don't know why. Its gliding ability doesn't feel that smooth at all, and I'm not really an enjoyer of the Griffin's glide. Don't really know what it is, but the Snowowl's glide just feels so much more satisfying and nice. And again, it can, I think, pick up like basically all the creatures which the algae can, which is a nice little ability to have. The Desmodus can't pick up anything, which is lovely. I don't actually really mind that much, and obviously it's a lot further back on the list. I'm not going to put a creature really in the top 5, maybe apart from the creature which is in at number 2. And actually number 1 for that matter, that can really pick up creatures, because it is quite a useful thing for a fly to have, especially for PvE players if you're transporting loads of stuff around and you don't have cryopods. Also, if you didn't know, the Snowowl can heal up creatures, which is a pretty nice thing to do for a mount which is this mobile. You can heal up the creatures. You don't need to walk a Daedon around with you. If you didn't have cryopods, obviously, you could just fly this thing around, and that is just your mount to fly around, and surely that would be really nice, wouldn't it? Honestly, this thing is just great, and if you really have the opportunity to tame one, I strongly advise that you do. They're so good, so agile, so versatile. Maybe not as agile as the Tapejara, but I don't really need that in a tame. The damage is pretty nice as well, along with their turning circle, something which the Wyverns cannot stand up to. And yes, they're not as fast as the Manag, but they don't need speed. They've got loads and loads of other uses, and their weight is a lot better than the Manag, so much better for metal transportation. Right, in at number 3 is the RG, and this creature has to be on the list for great flying travellers, as firstly it flies, and it is so good at doing all kinds of travelling. Its stamina drain is so short. Obviously, not the shortest in the game, but compared to the Pteranodon, it is so nice to have that. And its weight is, it's great. You can carry so much metal with these things, and you can even carry more than one creature at once. If you know your friend really likes dodos, you can carry your friend and a dodo at the same time. Obviously, only smaller creatures in its beak. You can't like carry a whole Anki in there. That would be pretty OP. Although you can carry the Anki and the Dodic below in its grasp, and then from that you can get an insane amount of metal, stone, thatch. Not thatch. They don't gather thatch. They might. No, I went off. Stone, metal, flint, those kind of resources, you know. Maybe crystal. Not sure. Actually, crystal does make sense. Just never really tried any of that. And actually, if you hover Ankis over metal nodes, they will just gather it, which is actually a nice thing to have. Back in the day, I always just get a Dodic and a raft along the shoreline, and then just sit on it and whack stuff. That was actually quite fun. But I would agree the RG is a significantly better method. Really easy to tame, being a very simple knockout one. Really great stamina, great weight, and if you're ever tight on health, just kill something, and its regen ability is great. And it also has a portable smithy as its saddle, so repair any metal weapons if needed. In at number 2 is the Bloodstalker, and also just as a quick honorable mention, I don't think it should go in the number 2 spot, but the gas bags is another great travel mount. Sorry, gas bag lovers, that isn't on the list. Again, Griffin lovers as well, and maybe Phoenix lovers. The Phoenix is an alright travel mount, actually. Honestly, that's quite a decent flying travel mount. And some people may also be saying from the Bloodstalker, this is not a flying travel mount. Well, in my opinion, it is. You know, gliders are on this list. The Bloodstalker has to be on this list. And why am I putting it in at number 2? At this point, I'm kind of just putting it here for raw speed, but also its versatility is uncomparable for so many things. It is just great in the water, great in the skies. It's just so good at everything. Maybe not doing boss fights, but it is my go-to water creature, which maybe you wouldn't expect. Maybe you would. Not my go-to traveling mount though, because I'm not the best at controlling it, but back in the day when I actually controlled this thing properly, it was like my favourite travel mount. But then the creature in it number 1 came out afterwards, and now that thing's my favourite travel mount. Either way, Bloodstalker, so versatile for so many things. Great for travelling water, the sky, pretty much just any biome it can deal with perfectly fine. Maybe don't throw it in a Wyvern trench and straight into lava, but, you know, there's a lot of other things that you can do with it apart from that, and I really like just its versatility and overall huge amount of abilities, and it makes it a really great travelling mount for me. Yes, can't really pick up anything, but I don't really need that for this creature. I just need raw speed so I can get from A to B as quick as possible, which is really what I want out of travelling mounts at the moment. Right, in at number 1 is the Mwing. So why do I think this is the best flying travelling mount? Well, it just is, okay? Its speed is so great. It's pretty much good in any terrain. It can skate along the top of the water, it can gather berries, it acts as a portable feeding trough, which I know isn't for travelling, but travelling feeding trough, you know, adds to the travelling essence. You need to place a feeding trough down. If you have multiple bases with multiple baby creatures, get loads of Mwings and then travel them around the place, or even one, and then travel them around accordingly. They're just so easy to transport everywhere because of their immense great speed, and also their saddle level is below level 20. You can get the Mwing saddle before you can get trank arrows, which seems a little bit crazy. And even before metal tools and all of that, I'm not actually sure when hide gear unlocks, but it might be after this thing as well. Either way, kind of around Raptor saddle level, you can get the Mwing saddle. And if you're on Gen 2, or I think Fjorda, which is the other map where these things spawn, if they spawn on Fjorda, pretty sure they do though, because they're so OP and they just chuck loads of OP creatures on Fjorda. Either way, yeah, you can take these things so easily with just some like billboards, I think. Yeah, billboards, 3 billboards and a bowler, boom, like that. Some trank arrows. You don't even need trank arrows, just use a club. Just so great, so fast, so amazing. But anyway, that is the end of today's video. And what is your favourite what is that thing? Favourite flying traveller? Don't know why I can't speak anymore. Sorry, Griffin or Gasbag lovers, but comment down below your favourite travelling flyer, and I'll see you all later.